Hello, it's Philip Taylor speaking from Richmond Green Chambers in London. It's not often that I review books outside the legal world that I inhabit, but this book's quite important because it steps over into a number of other areas of work that I am involved in, both in my legal work and also my political work. This book is called Nevertheless. It's a fourth edition. It's been written by John Kirkby, or Kirkby. I'm calling him Kirkby, but it could well be Kirkby that he likes to be known as. The publishers are Christians Against Poverty Books. It's a special organisation. I'll explain a bit about that. I wrote the review, although it's come under the name of myself and my wife, Elizabeth. I've said an important addition to the overall public legal education PLE initiative in the age of austerity, because every little bit helps. And I'll explain what that means in a minute. Let's look at the book first. You've got a man at the top of the mountain. There we are. The incredible story of one man's mission to change thousands of people's lives. John Kirkby, or Kirby. Nevertheless, Christians Against Poverty. There's the spine, and then there's quite a lot of information on the back. Now, the book is a paperback. It's got quite a lot of stuff in it. It's got a few little advertising bits at the end. And it's got an update for 2009. It's got some photographs in it, and if we go to the front, it runs to 200 odd pages. It's got a lot of quotes from a large number of people, and you've then got the various, the front page there. You've got some information about previous editions, and then you've got the content section itself. And obviously it talks very much about God transforming a person's life. And it talks about the organisation of Christians Against Poverty. And then it talks about John Kirby's early years as a photograph there and so forth. And then the book runs through. I'm not going to spoil it. There's quite a lot of history in it as well. I'm not going to spoil it too much. But what I do want to do is talk about the reasons why this book has been published and what the problems are, because they're not going away. They haven't gone away. They've been with us for many, many decades, well, for thousands of years. I think we may well be seeing big changes again in the future. We're always going to have some problems, but let's look at what the book is, because it's an important book by John Kirkby. As I say, I'm going to call him Kirkby. It's described as the incredible story of one man's mission to change thousands of people's lives, because he has done so, no question about it. It's a religious book, and there's some quotes from the Bible, various things that you would expect, and it deals with debt. First published in 2003 by this organisation called Christians Against Poverty Books, and they're based in Bradford. Although I received this book, I was given it by the Reverend MacDonald in Edinburgh, in Scotland, the Church of Scotland. And I had a discussion, he told me about this, and I thought I would read the book, which I have done. I think it's high time then that a lawyer makes a comment on the current mess which the bankruptcy law, is today, because that's what the problem is. It serves little useful purpose for anyone in many of the cases that I deal with, because of what I describe as the jurisprudential negativity of the current rules, which need to be modernised. Now, the reason I'm reviewing this book is to get that particular point across, because people who are in poverty are in a very vulnerable position. And we as lawyers often see people in a particular way. We often watch the full force of the final stages of debt restructuring when the courts take over, and it often does not need to be like this at all, in my view. And there are frustrations of lawyers and the judiciary which can quite often be clearly seen, because the law certainly, I'm suggesting, remains inadequate for the 21st century. And I'm not alone in saying that. And if we had cameras in some of the courts, you would see the way in which these people behave. And I think people would be quite shocked. Let me just say then, we feel that Kirby's stories remain all the more important for those suffering debt issues in an era when legal aid is all but gone, with austerity remaining still quite high on the political agenda. I know we've got Brexit now. Brexit is obviously leading to much uncertainty for the immediate future. So do read the book on the basis that even though the views come from a religious perspective, which may not be popular with some. I think there's some very good common sense here. It's cross-party support in Parliament, of course, for public legal education initiatives, which is where I come in on this one, because this work nevertheless should, in our view, be seen as giving a series of basic advice points which will be of help to all of those who are in the most parlous financial states. The complete and utter lack of assistance, which follows most of the court hearings. And I'm not attacking trustees in bankruptcies or equivalent. I'm talking here about the whole way in which we're looking at the problem. It's all about enforcement as well, to a certain extent, which again is not being looked at. And as soon as you mention the word, they're all running, all the people in Parliament and everyone, all running in the other direction. Not good enough. We've got to start looking at this again. We hope also, and I certainly take the view, this book will be comforting for those who have heavy worries on their shoulders, because I can understand, like everybody else, the position that they feel and they can be in. Because we've all faced problems of this sort, actually, most of us in the past, and we've got to know how to deal with it. It's time, as we approach the 2020s, then, that we see a little more blue sky political and legal thinking when it comes to the archaic insolvency rules, which are incredibly one-sided in the eyes of some. Many have called for reform, and hopefully sooner rather than later different attitudes will prevail on the entire matter of indebtedness and how to alleviate the severity of the problem from the lowest earners in the society that we have and the chronically poverty-stricken. It doesn't have to be like this, and in fact you certainly find in other jurisdictions and other countries that they adopt a slightly different approach. The standards of living are different and so on. And I think we will be looking, certainly in this century, at substantial changes. There will always be people who earn more money than other people, as long as you have the current economic systems that we have. But at least you can identify and help those who are much in need. Although the title's been around for a decade, it closely markets the charitable movement itself, Christians Against Poverty, which of course may be a bit disconcerting for some, but it has an enduring title which I think has helped many people. Sadly though, it could be a turn-off for quite a few people with debt issues, because as I have found, a lot of them really will not face up to the reality of it all. And the biggest benefit of the book though is that it should be read as I think as an additional source of help. Obviously there is the religious part to it as well, but I think it does help give some common sense views together with material from welfare law publishers like the Child Poverty Action Group and the Legal Action Group, who are dealing with the more difficult welfare law problems that we face today in social law. And the updated title today, I think, remains a wide general advice text, purely for readers who wish to get a better idea of this area of information and the logical advice which is set out by Kirkby and the CAP, which gives a great deal, I think, of help for all. So do take what bits in the book help you with your own debt issues if you've got them. Although it won't be for everybody, this book, but at least it's there if you need it. And I think there's a bit of positive help which is given, and that's basically the purpose. It's positive information as well, which you're getting. The fourth edition was published in 2009, and all the proceeds of the book go to the Christians Against Poverty organisation. And as I say, I thought it was a book that was worth reviewing. And it's certainly a book that I think one should be aware of if you do have these issues. There it is again. It's a paperback. It's not very expensive. There's the spine. £6.99 is the retail price. There's the back of it. And just opening it in the middle. This is talking about some of the difficulties, the dates of when he was going through various things. He does quote from the Bible occasionally. That may be disconcerting to some people. He deals with Australia in chapter 9. And as I say, this is an issue which a lot of people don't want to talk about, but I think it is important for me to do something like this, at least put it on the system, so that if people do turn to this sort of publication, I hope it helps. I'm sure it will do. Thank you very much to everybody involved in this. I'm looking at it really from a non-religious point of view, but I'm putting forward some positive steps about how one can get some help when it comes to this sort of problem. Thank you to all. Bye-bye.